First of all, this is a May meeting of the Planning Commission. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America
and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In terms of the April minutes, does anyone have any comment, additions, deletions, corrections? If not, could I have a motion to approve the?
I just actually had a question. The version I was saying, it looked like all the votes were like either 6-0 or 7-0, but I thought there was one where it was like 6-1. And I was just like,
I thought 6-1 was the 250 King of Prussia.
Right.
And you were the one, I think.
No, it was Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. So that
I'm just saying it just struck me because I didn't it was counter to my recollection, and I didn't know if anybody else noticed that either. It seemed like somehow the numbers were off because like some were 6 and some were 7, but it never said if anyone was abstaining, and the ones that were 6.
If you want, we'll check the tape, which is what we do. So I have trust in those numbers because Trish goes back to the video, but we'll double check.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So we only have one agenda item tonight, and it's 250 King of Prussia. This is the third month in a row we've heard from 250 King of Prussia. Just so to serve memory here, the first time we heard them this year, we were neutral on their zoning hearing board application. The second time we heard them in April, there were some minor changes they made after meeting with the Board of Commissioners to the plan, and we recommended approval for the zoning hearing board application, and they're back. They're back tonight. And by my reading of the plans, I could only find a couple of very small arithmetic changes in their setback issues. But maybe I missed something. But anyway, Bob Tucker, are you leading the charge for 250?
Yes, good evening. Bob Tucker here on behalf of the applicant. Matt, you accurately summarized the previous 2 meetings, and I apologize if the Planning Commission is tired of us, which I would understand.
Oh, no. You know what it was, Bob? It was just that we anticipated that you would go before zoning hearing.
So following our April presentation to the Planning Commission, we were prepared to make the same presentation to outline the changes that were made to the concept plan to the Board of Commissioners. We were taken off the agenda before the last Board of Commissioners meeting, and were advised to refile the zoning application. So the one that's before you tonight is the same zoning application essentially that was discussed at the last month's meeting.
Mr. Tucker, if you could, so just for my own edification, and I think there's some folks that want to know too. So we had the first application, the second application tonight. So the first application was changed slightly to become the second application. And this third appeal is the same as the second.
Correct. This is the same that was voted on by you last month to recommend approval.
And not to extend the meeting, could you just very briefly tell us that, so there's no delta between 2 and 3, but could you just step through the changes from 1 to 2?
Yeah, so on with me tonight is Joe Trainer and our engineer, Alex Tweedy. And also available is our traffic expert, Greg Richardson, who's preparing a traffic report for the land development. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Alex to go through those changes from 1 to 2.
Thank you, Bob. And I just shared my screen. This drawing is probably the best summary of the changes. The difference between submission 1 and submission 2 was a request or a feedback from the board to reduce the increase in impervious and increase the green space on the plan. So the difference that was from the very first application that you were neutral on to the second application, which is exactly the same as this third application, was an effort to decrease impervious and increase green space. So some minor changes in this southern corner. We originally had proposed 2 new generators. We reduced that down to 1 to save some green space. And the major change was we agreed to lose 10 parking stalls, a net loss of 10 parking stalls, and create additional green space at this entrance, which does twofold. It increases green space and reduces impervious coverage from the original application, and then also allows some stormwater improvement to do a surface rain garden as a vegetative practice versus the original approval that envisioned an underground stormwater system. So this allows a more vegetative based stormwater system.
Alex, could I ask a favor of you?
Sure.
Could you go in the appeal? There's whatever 3 or 4 specific items. Could you touch on each of them and say if there's change, no change, whatever it may be?
Correct. The first is setbacks for the location of the garage. As we discussed, it's tucked in the southeast corner. The setbacks are the same, 43.39 feet along opposite King of Prussia Road. Well, and I believe this one changed by 0.01. It was originally 17.17. Now it's 17.16 for some minor architectural changes to the garage opposite Radnor Chester Road. So these both require setback relief for proximity to the property line. Then the other variance was building and structure coverage for the property. Which is 42.2%, whereas 30% is permitted. It should note that the property is already over the standard for maximum building coverage, but since the garage counts as a structure and that's included in the calculation, it expands upon that existing nonconformity and increases it up to 42.4. And then.
So Alex, I'm sorry, it was first application was 42.2, second was 42.4.
42.2. So the size of the garage has not changed. It's
Thank you.
those both have remained unchanged. And then the third variance, which was the subject of the change, was the minimum landscape area. So that originally had 12,270 square foot of impervious increase, and we reduced it by almost 5,000 square feet to take it down to 7,327 increase. So the new variance is 29.4% landscape area, whereas 45% is required.
And what was the previous one then? On number 1, it's 29.47 versus.
27.8.
Thank you.
So Alex, Matt here, my question is, in April, were we using these new figures, these new percentages?
Yes, there's no difference between April's plan and this plan other than we closed the original application and filed the exact same plan as a new application.
So I'm new to this chair thing, but Steve, why are we hearing this? If we already approved this identical.
Because they, when they withdrew number 2 and refiled, it is a new appeal, and it has a new appeal number.
This is
39. This one has a new appeal number. So they're coming through planning commission as required before going to zoning hearing board for a recommendation of some sort. But they are required to do so because this is a new appeal.
But it's essentially a formality.
I wouldn't say it's a formality. I mean, it's a requirement. So anybody who has an appeal application going to the zoning hearing board has to appear before the planning commission.
I understand that, Steve, but all I'm saying is that there should be no reason why we would change our opinion about this, given what the facts on the table.
That would be up to the planning commission.
I think it's safe to say that the facts on the table haven't changed.
Correct.
And we would agree with that.
So
Make a motion to.
seriously, folks, like can someone please make a motion to approve?
Matt, I make a motion to reapprove the identical zoning application by the applicant.
Second.
All in favor?
Do we need to, Matt?
Oh,
Oh,
public comment?
Thank you, Chris. Ian, is there any public comment?
I am not seeing any hands raised for public comment.
So before the vote, Trish is sick tonight, so I want to make sure I get this straight. The motion is to recommend approval,
Reapproval, see.
recommend
I guess approval. I'll amend it.
approval
For the identical application that we approved in April.
Yeah, but this is for support of a variance, right?
I
Yeah.
thought it was for a variance in April as well.
Yeah,
That's correct.
I mean,
We're just approving them to go to zoning. We're not giving the zoning approval per se.
You're making a recommendation to the
Yeah.
zoning hearing board.
Right.
So I have recommend approval for the identical application approved in April, because that's what's going to be in my memo that goes forward.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah, it sounds good, Steve.
Thank you.
If you want to add April 2021, I mean, it's up to you.
I will do that, Mr. Kunda.
Steve, I'm sorry. Can you read that again?
So what my memo will say is the planning commission recommends approval for the identical application approved in April 2021.
For this particular applicant.
Yeah, and it'll say BDN 250 King of Prussia Road, yada, yada.
Do we want to just say, since this is technically a new application, we approve the one before us? I think that would be a little cleaner.
I'm willing to have you amend it. That's fine with me.
I don't know what other people feel.
If you wanted to, you could just make a motion to say the planning commission recommends approval of the zoning hearing board application, whatever the number is, noting that it is identical to the application number, whatever the number was, Steve, which was recommended for approval at the April Planning Commission meeting. That covers everything.
I agree. That sounds good, Mary.
You're hired, Mary.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All in favor of approval?
All right.
Is that unanimous then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you.
Take care. Have a good night.
We don't need a motion, right? To adjourn.
There's no new business or old business, so I think this meeting is over.
Okay, Uncle Matt.
Hey, thanks, everyone.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a